I've got. Oh, the broadcast is live.
We are live. All right, welcome everybody.
Oh, no.
It is Pinot Time. It is Thursday, so you're joining Ben, Papa Pietro, and I for Pinot Time. We have a special guest today, which is Randy Peters.
Randy.
If you've had any of our wine, you've had his wine. I think he's there now. He's there. There he is. Yes. And even better, we actually decided to start with a little Chardonnay. So we've got Randy Peters 2018 Chardonnay in our glass. And we did Tuesdays in the Cellar on Tuesday. We were drinking Zinfandel, and I was asking Ben, for a Pinot guy, why'd you get into Zin? So for a Pinot guy, Ben, why'd you get into Chardonnay?
Well, okay, we'll do this. So we were probably better known for our Chardonnays in 98, 99, and 2000. And the thing was that we were doing these barrel fermented full malolactic wines. And at that time, it was ABC, anything but Chardonnay. Nobody wanted barrel fermented Chardonnay. Nobody wanted with malolactic. They wanted them to taste like apples in a tin can. So since we could only make 2,000 cases at our last location, I told Bruce we decided to drop the Chardonnay and do more Pinot. And so when we finally did move back up to our new location on Timbercrest Farms, I added the Chardonnay back in, and it's one of my favorite wines. The way we do it, Bruce and I talked, if we can't sell it, we'll drink it ourselves. And so because Randy grows these wonderful Chardonnay grapes on his property, which he's going to tell you about, Peters Vineyard, which he can do that right now.
Oh, okay, thank you, Ben. Yes, I first met Ben and Bruce in 1999, and Bruce Perry come over, was looking for some Pinot Noir in 99. And there was not a lot of Pinot planted at that time. And so he said, hey, we had a mutual friend that knew that I had some Pinot planted over at Sebastopol, which is about 9 miles from the coast of Bodega. And so it's a cool climate Pinot Noir that we were the first ones to plant actually as far south as southwest of Sebastopol as we are now. At that time, we didn't know whether the grapes were going to do real well down there. So that's why I planted Pinot and Chardonnay in this vineyard, because they ripened the earliest of the grapes that I grew. And so I met Bruce just before harvest, and he said, do you have any Pinot Noir available? I said, geez, not really. We have some new vineyard coming on that might have like 2 or 3 ton. And he said, well, gee, I would really like to get some from you. And I said, well, I don't know. I can sell it all to the big winery there. But he said, I'll have an envelope for you when I come with the pickup to pick up the grapes. I said, an envelope? Geez, that's interesting. What will be in that envelope? He says, don't worry, it'll take care of the grapes. So you know what? I said, Bruce, I do. I have 3 ton of Pinot Noir set for you here at Peters Vineyard in 1999. And that's how we started our contracts and working with Ben and Bruce on this. And it started with an envelope, and we've been a handshake ever since.
And it's been over 20 years now that we've been shaking a hand and slipping the envelope.
Yeah. You know what, Ben? It only seems like 5 or 6. We've had a great marriage.
Really. So the Chardonnay, though, on this property, because a little bit about Tom's apples, it was an apple farm, and you guys did apples, and then I love this Chardonnay because it has that apple base to it. It really is really pretty apple and melon. Some beautiful fruit come out of that vineyard, especially the Chardonnay. So when I brought back the Chardonnay, I only brought back a couple hundred cases because I used this I do a lot of winemaker dinners. So the Chardonnay, instead of using somebody else's wine, we start out with this lovely Chardonnay, and we start all our winemaker dinners with the Peters Chardonnay. So a little bit about Tom's apples would be interesting.
Sure. The ranch where this is grown on was an apple ranch, and it was planted in the teens. And my father-in-law, Tom Mukaida, worked at from 1930 until 2016 when he passed away at 94. In that season, he passed away in December of 94. He worked that season in the harvest out in the field with us, and he kept it going. So what we did is when I was going to replace some of the vineyard, I had leased half the ranch from him in 1976, and we were going to replace some of the apples, the old apples. I planted some Chardonnay, and this is the Chardonnay that we're drinking right now. This Chardonnay we were planted in between 86 and 88. So it's got some good age on it. It's like Ben and I. We aren't young like Kristen, of course.
More.
It's like Ben and I. And so it's showing real nice right now.
Yeah, the Chardonnay just, it has a honeydew melon fish. I love it. The little vanilla, just a bit of toast in there, and really great acidity goes with food. Everybody that tastes this, I don't like buttery. I don't like, they taste, oh my God, this is really, really good. And so this little bit of Chardonnay this year, I think we made 350 cases of it because I thought it was apropos because it was such a wonderful harvest. Anyway, this Chardonnay has been an award-winning Chardonnay for us, and we've loved working with it for all these years. So since 2005, continued.
Yeah. And it being close to the ocean like that, we keep the high acid. And even though Ben does full malolactic, surprisingly that the farmer does know about malolactic fermentation. I am well-rounded, even though I'm a farmer. You know what? It doesn't take much to be a winemaker. It doesn't to be a farmer. Anybody could be a winemaker. But if you're a farmer like myself, it takes quite a bit to get going. And
all the way through.
Where we do the full malolactic fermentation, it does, the acid still shows in the wine, and it doesn't overpower it by having it too buttery and popcorn style up over the top. This is
not at all. This is very definitely
excellent food wine. Yeah. And I'm just learning, so I'll talk over the top of most people here as we go.
You can mute him. If anybody needs me to mute him, you let me know.
Yeah.
6 minutes in, gloves have already come off. So hilarious. One of the fun things I think about this wine is when you do get this in and you press it, it literally tastes like apple juice before it does the fermentation and the grapes come in.
Yeah.
I mean, popsicles for the kids out of it. It's apple pops. They're great. Pinot pops. Also make Pinot pops for the kids too.
Just perfect.
That's funny. No, I love the Chardonnay. It's fantastic.
Exactly. And I did plant this Chardonnay. This is the first grapes that we planted over there at the ranch after we took out the apples, because I vowed never to grow Pinot again, because I grew Pinot up here in Dry Creek, and it was a little bunch, hard to pick, hard to take care of. I said, I'm going to grow some Chardonnay, which is a nice grape and not like Pinot. And so I did plant Chardonnay for the first 2 years before I planted the Pinot in 1986.
Well, I didn't actually know Randy when Bruce had made the arrangements to buy fruit for him. And so one time Randy came up to the winery at Windsor Roach when we were there making the delivery, and he stuck his head in the thing. I said, well, who's the winemaker here? I want to meet the winemaker. And I think he and I introduced ourselves, and we've been friends ever since. He's been looking over my shoulder for 20-something years now.
Well, we have hit it off real well. In 2001, when we did win the Chronicle best of class for the Pinot tasting with the Pinot Noir. After that, I've started working with Ben, and I did work in the dried fruit industry throughout my life, and so I've always known that. We've always been in the retail side, so I knew that if you wanted to have sales, you needed to have a good product consistently to sell, because we always want to sell the second bottle. Second bottle is key in being in the vineyard. And I have a relationship with the wineries, whether it's Ben or other wineries that I sell to, that I have to provide the best quality product for them to be able to keep in business and keep selling the wines. And this way here, I try to provide the best product that we can out of the field. And being the fourth generation farmer that I am right now, one year in 2004, when we were doing some picking, it was a real hot year, and it ended up maybe ripening some grapes a little bit more on one side of the vine than the other. And so Ben, the winemaker, talked me into picking the morning side after the afternoon side. He said, pick the afternoon side, then we'll come back in about 10 days and pick the morning side. And so I have worked with him on those kind of things.
And it's paid off for us. I mean, the wine really showed so beautifully. I mean, it's one of our wines that are continual winner in all the events that we submit the wine to. But just the Chardonnay itself is one of my favorites. And like I said, I'm a Pinot guy, but Pinot and Chardonnay together, those two things are really highlight what the Russian River and Sonoma Coast area is. That area, and in fact, there's the 800-pound gorilla in the room is Chardonnay, because there's more Chardonnay grown in Sonoma and Russian River area and your area than anything else, more than anything. So to be able to make a really
Chardonnay got a bad name for a while though, because it became too butterbombish, too much, too heavy. Just tough.
Yeah, that was the ABC. Anything with Chardonnay, you couldn't give it away. So I said, when I went back to making it in 2005, I told Bruce, if we can't sell it, we'll just drink it. I mean, we both loved the style, full blown style, but done with a deft hand.
Yeah.
You've had to make 300 plus cases, so you have some to drink because you keep selling it all.
Well, I try to keep a little on the side for myself, but
I try to give you a little. We also,
Randy, working with Randy has been really good too. It's like he really puts a lot of effort in his vineyard, and he and I, and with most of my growers, and I'm really proud of that. We have a handshake for. I've never had a contract with you in the 20-something years we worked together. I think that's an amazing credit to both of us that our word is good and the fruit's better.
Yeah. Usually, as you know, a contract is only as good as the guy's word anyway.
Yeah.
You know, it's a piece of paper, but it don't make that much difference.
Well, so we've talked about our Chardonnay.
I'm ready to move on.
So I keep mine chilled in my little.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm on. You can tell the difference. I have a gold foil. Ben had the green foil, which is our Chardonnay. See, that's the only way we can tell them apart, because the bottles look the same. We've also got the 16 Peters, 16 Peters Pinot, but I was going to move into the Pinot. This is, I got to tell you, Randy, our wine club members, this is an absolute favorite. Once again, with Ben, though, consistent year after year with the wines he produces. So talk to us a little about this 16, the growing season, what happened in the vineyard, and then versus what happened at the winery. I already know where this is going, so I gave you a softball, Randy.
Yes, good. On 16 was the last year of our drought. We had a drought.
He dropped out. Oh.
I lost him.
We did make a mistake. Ben and I did make a mistake. We give Kristen the administration, which was a big mistake. We should be controlling what's going on here.
A held hostage, as they say.
In the corner. I said, could we have her up in the corner? Would be just perfect.
You guys make the wine, I'll sell it. That's our agreement.
Perfect. The 16 Pinot Noir vintage was, we only had about 13, 14 inches of rain. Normally our normal is around 28 to 30 inches. So we were a little bit lighter on rain. I do have a drip system over on the ranch there. I don't usually drip. I haven't dripped on 17, 18, or 19 at all, because we've had enough water. But in 16, I did add a little bit of water. But when I'm adding water, I'm only adding about 10 to 15 gallons per vine per season. And that would be like in August and the early part of September, just to help them through a little bit. And so the 16 season, just let me manage it real well. There weren't any heat spikes. There weren't any cold spikes. As Goldilocks said, it was just right. And so that's why I think the 16 vintage is real nice.
So a little bit about what's planted out there on Gold Ridge soil on that high ridge in the Petaluma Gap, which is brings that fog and marine influence in the afternoon, which makes this a really special spot for us. Is that the 3 clones that you grow out there for us? You grow the 115, the 777, and the Pomard, which I lean toward the Pomard. Maybe I should lean with that. But I really love the fruit that comes from there. And not only do we make the vineyard designated the Peters Vineyard, very special 10 barrels comes from that property. Our Mukaida release is a 10. It was picked specially in 2004 when we first did it. And kept
That's what I mentioned.
And we've told that story, but that now we hand-pick the 10 best barrels out of the whole lot. And then I also use, besides making the vineyard designate, I use it in our Pomard clone release and our 777 clone release. And if there is any left over, a little bit, it probably ends up in the Sonoma Coast a bit. But we don't make that every year. And then in years like 2015, when you barely gave me enough fruit to make any of that,
Yes.
I had to stretch it a lot of different ways to make all those different wines.
Is that when you paid me twice as much? Did you pay me twice as much? 15, I forgot.
Well, I tried not to, but
I put the other envelope.
I thought that the whole way.
Randy's fruit is in almost everything we produce, is what you're saying.
In our higher in our clonal selections and our very top club only Mukaida release, and it was just to Tom, who was just a wonderful man, Randy's wife's father. We knew Tom, and when we first met Tom, we thought he was one of the help on the property because he would drive the truck to deliver the fruit, but he was there all the time delivering the fruit to us. And so we started talking to him, and it turned out, geez, he owned the property. Who knew? Randy was, we named it Peters Vineyard. We thought Randy owned it, but anyway, so we did in 2004, we did that little homage to Tom with Mukaida, and the Wine Spectator gave it 95 points, a world-class wine. And now we have to make it every year. So sometimes it's difficult because sometimes like 15 is a very small year. It's very hard to have enough fruit to stretch it to all the things I need to do. But it's always consistent. Randy's a terrific grower, and we love walking in the vineyard with Randy every pre-harvest to see when I can tell him to pick the grapes.
Yeah.
Just a question.
My microphone was kind of, or not my earpiece was kind of cutting out there. I thought
an earpiece. Two questions. Number one question is for Peters Vineyard, is it all the same soil? And the second question from Bob is, how do you pick the best barrels? What does that mean when you pick the best barrels?
We'll let Randy answer the first question.
on the soil, it is essentially pretty much the same. Some of it has a little bit more clay in it, but most of it is all Gold Ridge sandy loam, and we're a southwestern exposure, which is facing towards San Francisco, looking towards San Francisco, San Pablo Bay, and down towards the ocean. And so it's pretty much all Gold Ridge sandy loam, but it's a very elevation driven ranch where, I mean, it's hilly. It's not flat. And so it has probably a 300-foot elevation change on it. You wouldn't think that makes any difference, but it makes a pretty big difference. But the soil type is pretty much the same, and it's a Gold Ridge sandy loam with it'll have seashells in it. So
that answer was so long. What was the second question?
I know, right? I was. By the way, I think I'm the only one drinking. Are you guys drinking?
I'm drinking. You didn't see me.
I'm just making sure. I don't like to drink alone. Randy, did anybody give you Peters?
no, no, they didn't give me any here.
Rude. You gotta.
What?
Well, you can't come to our house. We are, by the way,
I'll drink it for you.
I have it right here. Oh, there you go. We are socially distanced, by the way. I'm at my house. Ben's at his house. Randy's at the winery. Randy's about 13 miles away. He's at the winery, like I said. Ben and I are about 3 miles away.
Again.
We are socially distanced. Oh, but then other question was, Ben, how do you pick the best barrels? What constitutes a best barrel? Oh.
Palate.
Oh,
No, it's taste. You bet.
I have a really good team. My team, Dave and Tyson, have been with me for 16 or 17 years. We work very closely together, and we spend a lot of time picking out the very best of the very best. And over the 11 months, we are tasting these wines out of the barrel, and really we agree on which barrels that are really good until we really narrow it down to the 10 best barrels of that. And it usually is newer oak for sure. That's one of the things we upgrade the amount of new oak on that. So it's basically what the winemaker's choice. The 10 best.
How does the new oak affect the wine, do you think, Ben?
Well, I think it adds that the seasoning we're looking for, the spice that really. So with the Peters Vineyard, the fruit, the cherry fruit is always there in the baking spice. Yes. I think the oak heightens those. Plus, the newer oak adds the tannins necessary to allow that wine to age longer. So picking it properly, not overly ripe, right acidity, and matching it to a barrel that'll heighten the tannins helps this wine develop and last, and that's what we use to pick the ones that we think are the best. So it's very subjective. Everything I do is subjective. I make these wines for me, actually, me and my partner Bruce. So yeah. I don't always agree which way, but I make them to please myself. I love Pinots. I love Russian River Valley and Sonoma Coast Pinots. I love Pinot Noir area, and I love Burgundy of France. I like the fruit,
I have a question that I as you're talking about barrels, I know at Papa Pietro Perry we use probably 99% the same oak, right? The Francois Fair oak is what we use in our barrels.
Yes.
I used to work at a different winery, and they used 14, 16 different coopers, which would then change the flavor profile. Maybe not so much to my palate because I might not be that good, but maybe to yours. Does it make it more difficult using one cooper versus multiple different coopers? Does it make a difference with Pinot Noir?
Well, I think it does, because what I've tried to do is be consistent year in and year out. And so taking the winemaking style out of the program. So if I make all the wines the same using the same cooper, then it's easy to replicate what happens because it comes from the vineyard. It's not a winemaking style.
What? Does it come from the vineyard? Did Ben say it came from the vineyard? Wait a minute. I want to make sure, is this goes on the YouTube so then we can watch it? And say it came from the vineyard. Okay.
To you.
No.
So one of the problems though is like when you use like the shotgun approach to oak or coopers, you can't replicate that every year. Well, I use this, I use that. It is very difficult. One of the things I set out to do, instead of making lots of different wines, make one wine and be really consistent about it. To do like instead of a jack of all trades, to be a master of one. I tried just to focus in on Pinot, and how to make Pinot consistently is don't change a lot of things. I spent 18 years as a home winemaker developing a style. It might have been 19 years, developing a style of Pinot Noir that I could replicate year in and year out, because as a consumer, I was basically a consumer. I would drink a wine from somebody that I really loved one year, and they go back and buy it again next year. And so, well, what, did they shoot the winemaker? The guy fell off a cliff? I mean, what happened there? It was horrible. So what I try to do is to develop a style that could be replicated year in and year out, so that you have a lovely vineyard like Peters Vineyard you want that to show the same year. And yeah, you have definitely differences. So
There's nuances.
vintage to vintage. I mean, that the weather is always the X unknown factor. But if you can eliminate all those unknown factors and continually do the same thing every year, you can be very consistent. And that's what we try to do, because we have these lovely vineyards that we work with. We want to show the fruit, not the winemaker style. So
that's funny you say that, because I've always been a big believer in you follow the winemaker. No offense, Randy.
What?
I find that
she was doing just fine. She was pretty good. Kristen was kind of moderating all right, but now she's went off the rails. We got to rein her back in, Ben. Ben, we have to rein her back in.
Well, what I will say though is with the Peters Vineyard from all the years, like in 2004, well, our first vineyard designate was 2001, I believe, or 2000.
2000, yes.
2000 was our very first vineyard designate, and it's performed beautifully every year. Every year we've won numerous awards and recognition for that wine. The 2005 vintage, 2004 was the warmest ever, and that made me crazy because nothing would finish fermentation. So for weeks and weeks, I agonized that nothing was fermented. Then one day it all went dry. But the Wine Spectator recognized all 7 of my Pinots, gave 90 points to 95 points. Blew me away. So there was a lot of writers writing about too ripe Pinots in the Russian River. They were getting too ripe, but it was because of the weather. So in 2005, they had this beautiful growing season, very cool. The fruit was absolutely gorgeous, and they poo-pooed it. I mean, the critics just said, meh, and it really bummed me out. So in Pigs and Pinot, we were invited to participate in Pigs and Pinot. I think 50 or 60 of the top wineries in the world. They were invited. That's subjective also, but we were invited, and I thought I'd get even with everybody. I submitted the 2005. Everybody else was so happy about their 07s, which was a lovely vintage. But so we submitted the 2005 Peters Vineyard and won Pigs and Pinot.
what happened exactly?
And that was my revenge.
Perfect.
Yeah. So then
The last laugh.
I did indeed, and then just this last Pigs and Pinot, we won again with the was it Peters, right? We won again. Yeah. So we're the only winery in all the years that they've done Pigs and Pinot that we've won first and second place twice. Randy.
You did put the vineyard on the map to start with, definitely. And actually, it was probably Bruce that did it, because if he never brought me that envelope, we would have never been here today.
Right, well, that was my money in there too.
So it was Bruce Perry that set this all up. There's no.
Indeed.
So you can go far if you have cash in an envelope, is what you're saying.
In those days, yes, because how many months do you have to wait to get paid in that business?
6 to 8.
Yeah.
Hey, Lori's asking, how long do you age the Chardonnay in the barrel?
We do about the same amount of time as the Pinot. I use it's the only wine that I use Francois Frères almost exclusively for all the Pinots. But I use 3 Coopers for the Chardonnay to add a little extra something to the Chardonnay. So we age it it's all fermented new oak and everything, but the beauty of our Chardonnay, it's not over expressed. And I only leave it in the barrel for about 11 months. So I think that makes a big difference. I think doing it the way you get all the residual parts of it without getting that big buttery over the top.
Yes.
People aging it 16, 18 months, to my way of thinking, doesn't allow it to show the beautiful acidity that this wine has. So 11 months in oak is the answer to that question.
And Lori, that lets the vineyard show by doing it 11 months. It does let the vineyard show, and that's Ben's. No, I mean, and that's a good thing for the winemaker. It lets the vineyard show. So then he has this vineyard designate, Peters Vineyard Chardonnay, And by doing it that way, he doesn't put his stamp on it that goes over the top. Sometimes you can overdo things, you know, and it doesn't make it as good as it should be, I think.
Well, a lot of people, to some, more is better, and to me, less is more sometimes. So I kind of follow that thought. Less is more sometimes. But we didn't talk about this wine particularly, but you could just take this to the bank every year. Cherries. First, cherries show right on the palate. You get some baking spice, sets it off. And then some fresh plum and ripe cherry and raspberry meld. And then a little bit of the vanillin. We were talking about baking spices. And I think the vanillins bring out the toast, and the vanillins in the barrel brings that out with the baking spice. And this shows almost yearly the same qualities that you find in this wine year in and year out. It hardly ever changes. And I just say it's like the Energizer Bunny, man. It's cherries, 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 you know. And it shows every year. It just jumps right out of the glass at you. Very, very seductive wine. So,
to be clear, we don't add cherries to the
we
wine.
have no cherries.
I know some people ask those questions, so nobody did on this thread, to be clear. But some people do go, when do you add the cherry to the wine? When do you add the XYZ to the wine? And we don't, is the answer.
Fruit clones, the 115 to 667, 115 to 777, and the Pommard on this vineyard shows this cherry driven, spice loaded Pinot.
Please ask it if we have any.
It does definitely show in the vineyard that way. And being a fourth generation grower, I had never tasted the grapes as much as I do over the last 20 years now. And I started probably with Ben doing this because he was the first vineyard designate from the vineyard. So we're tasting the grapes. We aren't picking completely by numbers. We're picking by the flavor in the grape. And we can only do that once a year. For drinking wine and tasting wine, we can taste it throughout the year and taste it every month and see what we're doing. In the vineyard, when we're getting ready to pick the grapes that we're going to use for 2 years from now, we're doing it one time a year. And Ben and I go out into the vineyard and taste the vineyard. We look at numbers, but then we taste the vineyard, the grapes in the vineyard, to see how they will be. And after 20 years, hopefully, Ben, we are starting to get a little bit of a clue on what to do.
Well, I remember one time was a debate. Should we pick? Should we wait? We decided to wait. How much pain can you take? Right? You know,
and it is.
They drop their weight. The fruit loses water, so consequently, not a really good thing for growers. A lot, you know.
They get paid on weight, to be clear. Yes.
Yeah, so Rudy and I have worked out between us, you know, so how much pain can we take? Should we wait? Should we not wait? And I think that kind of working together has really brought this wine to the pinnacle of where it is today for us, you know. Thank you.
Question on that. You're saying that you test the wines, right, in a lab with the sugars and whatnot, and then you go out and confirm it with palate. That 1 year that you said, yeah, we just want to wait, does that happen often where the lab tests, I guess, in essence, say, go ahead and do it, but your guys' palate is saying, oh, good, a few more days. Let's give it a few more days. Does that happen much?
Yeah, I would think.
Probably,
no, being a grower and helping sell the end product, the grower says, no, the grapes are fine. They're good. Let's take them in. We're good. But I think that happens more often than not, Ben, that we're going, these numbers, the pH is right, the acid is right, the numbers are, the bricks, the sugar is right. But what do you think? And I do work with the winemakers to do that.
But we've said the flavors.
Not that we do that.
The numbers are there, but the flavors aren't. So I think
Yes.
a lot of times we've said, let's wait and see if those flavors come out. And what we're really looking for is, so the numbers are a guidepost, but the flavors are, especially with Pinot, it's really important to get those flavors, or else you have a sparse green Pinot, not very inviting, And so we take the chance. We work together. Sometimes we take the pain. Sometimes the grower takes the pain. But we work together in that.
It's always the grower taking the pain. Oh, you take the pain sometime? I didn't realize that. Thanks. Now at least I know that you take the pain sometime. That's good.
I try. I try.
What to do with you? I take the pain every day.
So, I'll tell a little quick story about inviting Randy in the early days when he came to visit to pick up bins at the
I love this story.
Yeah, so
9:30 at night.
Story, and I'll tell my side of the story.
Okay. 9:30 at night.
First, he just said 9:30 p.m.
PM. I'm getting ready. We're going to probably start picking around 2, 3 in the morning, something like that. We pick at night to make sure they're cool, because the winemakers have some foggy idea that they should pick at night. I don't know. And we started 20 years ago. Now they won't let me off the hook. And so we do pick all the grapes at night. It does make better wine. And so I came in about 9:30. We've been working all day, setting everything up, and I'm getting ready to start at 2 o'clock. And Ben and Bruce are there at the Windsor Oaks Winery, and they said, "Well, you want to stay for dinner? You're just picking up some bins." I said, "Yeah, I'll stay. I'll get a burger or something, whatever you got here. A hot dog,
weenies and beans and weenies is what you.
Yeah, beans and weenies." I said, "I'll get whatever you got." And they said, "Okay." So I stopped, and we go over there to the dinner. They got turkey breast, mashed potatoes. What else? Green beans, a full, looks like Thanksgiving dinner. This is 9:30 at night in the later part of September, after we've been working for 3 weeks straight. And they have a full Thanksgiving dinner ready for me at 9:30 when I'm coming to pick up my bins. And I said, "You know what? This is a pretty good place."
Well, we cooked every night in our little. We lived on the side of the vineyard on a dirt road. I lived inside of my van, but we set up a little campsite just like we were camping outside, and we set up. We had a stove, a 2-burner stove, a sink with cold water, and a barbecue, an old 55-gallon drum barbecue, and we cooked every night. And when we got through with all our work, we cooked for our crew, which was Dave and I and Tyson and whoever would pop in at the time. So Randy had to show up, but we ate well. I mean, we were living the camping life at the time of harvest. We did that for 2 to 3 months every year, living at Windsor.
That's the part that I hope people didn't miss. Randy wasn't visiting them at this fancy winery with this amazing kitchen. He was not visiting them at someone's house. They were literally camping out by the vineyard, and they were making these amazing, elaborate meals, which my understanding is, right, Bruce would come once or twice a week with supplies. And if you have visited the winery or you have come and seen us and you happen to come by around noon, you will see the entire staff out on the patio eating lunch Monday through Friday. The winery still makes us lunch every day. And I always say I eat way better at lunch than I ever have at dinner. We are very spoiled. They make their own stocks. They make their own everything. It's fantastic. So yeah, Randy, right? Just cemented your relationship with us.
Exactly. I said, I'm set. I said, things are good. And I told my wife when I got home at 11 o'clock, after we had a bottle of wine and dinner, she goes, "Where you been?" I said, I had dinner. What kind of dinner? I said, Thanksgiving dinner with Ben and Bruce over at Windsor Oaks.
That is awesome. I have one final question for you, Randy, that was given to me earlier. And while on a cruise, have you ever tried to throw anybody overboard?
Well, go on a cruise with Ben and Yolanda Papapietro and Bruce and Renee Perry, my good friends. And they had to bring, I understand, they did have to bring the wine club manager.
Oh, dang it.
Because there was probably another 70 or 80 of us that were there that were wine club members, and like myself. And the wine club manager was there, but she was kind of causing too many problems, getting iffy a little bit. I said, hey, have a clue here. You never know. You've been out drinking all night. You come home at 1:30 from one of the casinos on the ship, or you come home
water.
ship, boom, over the side. Over the side. You never, it'd be like this. You go, Stasito. That means nobody says anything. Because I'm only half Italian, but nobody says anything. And Kristen's over the side. We don't know where she was. I think it was yesterday I saw her.
Did not throw me over. I will be honest with you. He did leave me on the deck late one night when it rained and it was wet and slippery. And Vincenzo had my back, and so did Simone, because Randy, she's now got my back because you didn't mention her in the story, just to be clear.
We had this wonderful cruise that we took with many of our club friends.
Yes.
We went to Australia and New Zealand. We spent a couple days in Hunter Valley exploring the Australian wine program, which was, they were so generous. I mean, everywhere we went in Australia, they overfed us and over drank us.
They really took care of us. We went down there, and it was very interesting. I do feel remiss. You're right, Kristen. I do feel remiss because there is my favorite Papa Pietro. There's no doubt about that. And she knows it. There's no problem there. She knows it.
You're a day late and a dollar short. You got making up to do. Anyways, on that note, I want to thank everybody for joining us. This was absolutely fantastic. We're doing our first ever Zoom virtual tasting Saturday at 3. You can find the details on our website if you want about the virtual tasting. If you already have the wines, you can still join the tasting. Just shoot us an email or let us know. Going forward, we are going to do some more of these little smaller style Zoom personal tastings. But until Tuesday, when Ben and I rate our celebrating cheers. Thank you, Randy, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben, and Kristen. Yeah.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, guys. Bye.